Namaskara, devotees. Welcome to our Satsang today, which is a continuation of our last class where we discussed the Lakshagriha, or the house of wax. And then today we'll just do a bit of conclusion on that with Vidur's wisdom, and then continue with the journey. After the Lakshagriha, what was the journey of the Pandavas and Mother Kunti? So that's the simple plan for today's class. So Vidur's colossal wisdom or immense wisdom needs a revisit. When you get the opportunity, look at it again and again. It's just wonderful wisdom. I'm only extracting a little bit and putting it here. Then again, during the course of this class, you will see Vyasadev's wisdom, how he gives advice to the Pandavas and Mother Kunti. Again, the Mahabharata is full of this beautiful wisdom and written in very poetic form. So we'll be looking at the onward journey after they escaped from the house of wax, which was set on fire by none other than Bhima. And then they crossed the river Ganga and continued their journey. So Vidur's wisdom. In the last class, as you recall, grandfather Bhishma was very sad because his beloved grandchildren, the Pandavas and Mother Kunti, was believed to have been burnt in the house of wax because they found the bodies there. They found a lady's body, and then they found 6 males, one of which was supposed to have been the person who constructed the house of wax. So it was assumed, of course, those days they didn't have DNA testing to see whose ashes they were. They just assumed that it was the Pandavas, and then the other male being the person who built the palace, and Mother Kunti. So he was very sad. Then Vidur told grandfather Bhishma in confidence, a secret. He said, there's no need to worry. They are safe. I've made sure that they are safe. So then the famous words, which translated into English, where Vidur advises grandfather Bhishma, he said that adversity or difficulty is the best world as well as the greatest gymnasium. Fire purifies gold. Let the Pandavas emerge out of their own trials and tribulations as polished gems. Then this beautiful statement here, a smooth sea seldom produces skillful sailors. The Pandavas providentially have gone into a wider world of ever-expanding horizons. Rude contact, which means difficulties, with the hard realities of life can only add another dimension to their personalities. I am sure Pandavas will return to Hastinapur as heroes with a difference. So this was a beautiful statement he said to grandfather Bhishma. And then he continued to say that princes in palaces and plants in the parks, because plants in the parks are always taken care of. They are watered, they provided the proper ingredients, the fertilizers, etc. So princes in palaces and plants in the parks are doomed to stunted growth. The prince in the palace is the proverbial parrot in the golden cage, and the power of the wings are atrophied. So even if you, after the parrot has been in the cage for a long time and you open the cage door, the parrot may not even be able to fly because it's forgotten how to use its wings, and the strength of the wings would also have been weakened because it's been unable to fly for a long time. Then he continued to say, the victim of vicious adversity today will be victorious, the victorious favorite of fortune tomorrow, which means Vidur was predicting that the Pandavas will come back and be victorious. I am indeed delighted that destiny has provided this precious opportunity to the Pandavas to be graduated from the greatest university ever known to history. So what a beautiful wisdom. So when our own children, for example, go through adversities, what happens to them? They become stronger. They become more focused. They become more resilient. But if we, with the slightest difficulty that our children undergo, if we as parents step in and protect them every step of the way, are we actually doing them a favor? Or are we keeping them like parrots in the golden cage? That sooner or later, one day when we are not around, how are they going to manage themselves? So there's many things that we can take away from this advice given by Vidur. Similarly, if we are working in the office, if as the boss of a particular department or a division, etc., if the boss always makes the decisions, always steps in when the staff are facing difficulties, how are the staff going to learn their own abilities to improve on their techniques to do work better if the boss is always stepping in and making the decisions? So similarly, we can apply this to our everyday life and as we gain more and more experience in life, we can be mentors. And mentors do not always step in. They guide, but sometimes they guide from a distance. And sometimes when they guide even without the knowledge of the person being guided. So this is a beautiful wisdom. So now we continue with the journey of the Pandavas. So they, of course, they escaped through the tunnel from the Lakshagraha. And after their escape, they crossed the Ganga. There was a boat that had been arranged by Vidur. So the boatman was waiting for the Pandavas and Mother Kunti. And on their onward journey, they were heading towards Ekachakra. We will see where Ekachakra is on the map later. So they faced many hardships on the way to Ekachakra. Sometimes Bhima would carry Mother Kunti on his shoulders. And of course, because the journey was difficult, they felt miserably oppressed by the sufferings that they had to bear. Sometimes they stopped for a while. Of course, it was a long journey, and rested. And then they took their turns to keep vigil at night. Sometimes Bhima would keep vigil while his mother and brothers fell asleep, fully exhausted. One night, when Bhima was on duty, keeping vigil, a giant cannibal or an asura named Hidimba tried to attack the Pandavas. And of course, there was a big fight between Bhima and the asura, Hidimba. And without a guess, yes, Bhima was the victorious one. And this fight took place while the mother and the brothers were still asleep. So the Hidimba demon was vanquished, he was killed, but then he had a sister, Hidimbi, and she was watching this fight. And she was shocked that this human being could give her brother, who was a demon, such a good fight. And not only that, killed her brother, which she loved very much. So she fell in love with Bhima. By watching his skills, this Hidimbi fell in love with Bhima. So as I mentioned earlier, Hidimba was killed by Bhima. The commotion, then later, the noise of the fight, woke up Kunti and the rest of the Pandavas. And then Hidimbi went to Mother Kunti and pleaded. And she told her, look, I'm alone now. My brother is not there to look after me. Can Bhima marry me? So it was a proposal on the spot. And Bhima was, of course, shocked by this proposal. So Mother Kunti felt compassion for Hidimbi, and she said, yes, I bless you. You may marry my son. So Bhima got married to Hidimbi, and they had a son, Gatotkacha. He was born, and later in life, Gatotkacha basically served his father Bhima and the Pandava cause. He was in the battle of Kurukshetra, and he basically was one of the heroes of the battle of Kurukshetra. Okay. So Gatotkacha is a strange name. It literally means bald pot. That's what it means, Gatotkacha. And he played a very important role in the Mahabharata. His name comes from the fact that he was bald, Utkacha, and he was shaped like a gattam, a pot. So that's how the name Gatotkacha got put together. His maternal parentage, which means his mother, made him half demon. He was half human, half demon. By virtue of that, he had several magical abilities. Compared to a human, he had extraordinary abilities. He could fly. He could increase or decrease his size, and he could even become invisible. So he had all these qualities within him. He was an important fighter for the Pandava side of the Kurukshetra war, and he caused a great deal of destruction to the Kaurava army. In the early part of the war, basically the first 11 days, grandfather Bhishma was the person in charge of setting the rules for the war. So he said that there was no fighting to be taking place after sunset. The fight can only continue in the morning once the sun has risen. And he also set many other rules. For example, a charioteer can only fight with another charioteer. A person who is on the ground fights with another person. A foot soldier fights with other foot soldiers. So all these rules were in place as long as grandfather Bhishma was there. After grandfather Bhishma was shot by the array of arrows, he was no more in charge. And after that, the Kauvaras actually started to break the rules. They started to attack at night. They started doing all sorts of things which were not in accordance to the rules, the ground rules that had been set by grandfather Bhishma. So what happened was Gatotkacha could see in the dark. So when Gatotkacha started his attacks during the night, the Kauvaras couldn't do anything. They were basically getting slaughtered by one person who was flying in the air and creating immense destruction to the Kauvara army. Okay? And this is when Drona, so after Bhishma was shot by the array of arrows, Dronacharya became the person in charge. And Dronacharya, because he had been dominated by the Kauvaras for many years, because the Kauvara brothers had stopped listening to Dronacharya for many years and making decisions on their own. So although the rules were there, they were not to be followed for the warfare. Okay? So basically, Gatotkacha was finally killed. Why? I'll explain that to you also. It was by Karan's special weapon. Okay. So he had a hero's death in that great war of Mahabharata. And just a quick recap. So the brothers and the mother Kunti, after Bhishma, sorry, not Bhishma, but Bhima. I always get confused between Bhishma and Bhima. The names are so similar. So Bhima got married to Hidimbi, and then he stayed with her until Gatotkacha was born. And then after he was born and everything was fine, he then caught up with his mother and brothers. Okay, so after the birth of Gatotkacha, Bhima left his wife Hidimbi and rejoined his brothers and mother Kunti in their travels through the forest eastbound towards Ekachakra. So a bit more about Gatotkacha and the war. Because of his magical powers, he could kill at will. he could destroy the Kauravas at will. And he also caused the death of Jayadratha. Okay? And Jayadratha was basically not a very nice person. He had tried to kidnap Draupadi before. So this battle was continuing past sunset, as I mentioned, because the rules had been broken. Drona had no control over the situation anymore. And he was especially effective at night. So at this point, Duryodhan, he realized that if Ghatokacha continued slaughtering the Kaurava army, they're going to lose the battle in no time. So he told Karan, you have a special weapon. And I know you can only use it once, but if you don't use it now, we are going to be destroyed anyway. So you better use it now and eliminate Ghatokacha. Okay? So Karan what sort of weapon did he have? He had a special weapon that had been given to him by Lord Indra. It was called the Vasavi Shakti. Okay? Problem is, he could only use it once. And Karan had been saving it for the battle with Arjun. When he faced head-on with Arjun, he was going to use the Vasava Shakti on Arjun to eliminate him. But now here, his boss, Duryodhan, is telling him, use it now. Use it now to kill Ghatokacha. It's urgent. So then Karan used the Shakti against Ghatokacha, and Ghatokacha basically died a hero's death. After Ghatokacha's death, basically Lord Krishna, he declared the war is actually over. The Pandavas have won because now Karan doesn't have the divine weapon anymore to use in his fight against Arjun. So Lord Krishna made that declaration. Okay? So that's the background, just of how great Ghatokacha was. Now we will continue with the journey. Okay. So of course, Bhima caught up with his mother and brothers, and on their way through the forests, heading towards Ekachakra, they met grandfather Vedvyas. They bowed down to the Rishi. The Rishi blessed them. And then Kunti narrated their sufferings to Vedvyas. Of course, Vedvyas knew what was happening, but he listened. He gave them a good ear. The Rishi smiled and he said, again, very poetic, lovely language. He told Mother Kunti and the 5 brothers, human existence is a tangled web of light and shade. Joys and sorrows are the warp and weft of life. Warp and weft basically is, if you take basically even a mat, you will see that some of them are straight line and some of them are things which go round and round to hold straight strands together. So that is a warp and weft basically, okay? So there is so much based in the best of us, so much good in the worst of us. No absolute assessment is ever possible. The complete sinner is as rare as a pure saint. The same person is a sinner when compelled and a saint when inspired, which means even a sinner, when he is inspired sufficiently, he can behave like a saint. And when a saint goes through a lot of difficulty, he might actually behave like a sinner. So the coexistence of good and evil everywhere in the world finds its reflex in each person, in each man. Each and every one has to bear the consequences of his action. The wise person is equidistant to grief and exaltation. Exaltation means praise. So basically, if you look at the last few words, very important, each and every one has to bear the consequences of his or her actions. And the wise person doesn't very much concern himself with difficulties or joys that he's experiencing. So this is the advice he gave Mother Kunti and the Pandavas. So these words of wisdom uttered by Vyasadeva provided the Pandavas with consolation and basically inspiration. Vyasa advised them, continue to proceed to Ekachakra, and in Ekachakra, you will find a Brahmana's house. I've pre-arranged it. He's expecting you. Okay? So you take refuge in that Brahmana's house, but you need to be dressed as Brahmanas as well. So with that, the Pandavas continued on their journey to Ekachakra. So if we take today's map, remember they were in Banarva, today's Varnavat, which is today's Barnava, where the house of wax was. So they escaped, they crossed the river Ganges, they started heading eastbound. Okay. So in today's context, this is where Ekachakra is, and this is where Barnava is. Okay. Ekachakra is in West Bengal. And I've been there twice. It's a small little village, basically. And you can actually go to the location where the Pandava brothers and Mother Kunti stayed in the Brahmana's house. The location is still there. The house isn't there, of course, but that location is there. If you want to go for a tour to Ekachakra, the Pandas or whoever the guides are, they will know exactly where you want to go, and they will take you to the location in Ekachakra. Okay, so the city of Ekachakra, so disguised as Brahmanas, as per advice by grandfather Bhishma. They stayed in the Brahmana's house. They collected alms. Because Brahmanas those days, they don't have a source of income. They was bhiksha, they'll go begging for food. And they lived happily in the Brahmana's house. There was something strange about Ekachakra though. It was under the control of a Rakshas. And that Rakshas was called Baka. The ruling prince of Ekachakra basically ran away. He left Ekachakra and left the city to its fate. Baka used to enter the city at his pleasure. Mad with hunger, he will just pick some people up and eat them up. Women and children, whoever, indiscriminately, he'll capture them, take them to his cave, and he'll eat them up. So that's what Baka used to do. So the people of Ekachakra made a deal with Baka. He says, don't come to our village and take it. We know that you get hungry maybe about once a week or twice a week. What we will do is we will provide a cart for you with all the food that you want to eat. And the person who takes the cart to you, you can eat that person up also. Okay, but please don't come to our village indiscriminately and just pick mothers and young children and whoever it is to your cave and eat them up. So the understanding was there. Okay, so the Rakshas, as I mentioned, would even eat up the person that brought the cart of food. So one day, Mother Kunti heard the Brahmanas, the householder, basically crying out. So she went to him and asked him, what's the matter? Why are you crying? So the Brahmana said, it's now my turn. Tomorrow it is my turn to take the cart of food for Baka. So chances are I'm not coming back. It will be my last day. So he was very sad. So Kunti then decided she needed to step in. So she decided that she would send Bhima instead of the Brahmana landlord with a cart of food so that it was a way to repay the kindness of the Brahmana who was looking after them, providing them shelter in Ekachakra. Okay? So of course, the householder says, no, why should Bhima go instead of me? And then she finally revealed to him, she said, look, Bhima is no ordinary person. He's a Pandava. He's a warrior. Okay, we are under disguise. So let him go. So the Brahmana was very glad and he immediately agreed to the arrangement. But Kunti requested him to keep it a secret. So Bhima went with a cart of food. But after arriving at the destination, what did Bhima do? He ate up all the food. So, of course, Bakka got furious. So Bakka saw the empty cart. He got very angry and he started attacking Bhima. So a fierce fight started. They fought with stones, uprooted trees. Bakka was hungry, so he became complacent and he eventually was killed by Bhima. So after killing Bakka, Mother Kunti was concerned. This story of Bhima killing Bakka is going to be common knowledge in Ekachakra, and they're going to figure out that they are the Pandavas. So this has to remain a secret. So they decided to leave the Brahmana's house. They were concerned that this legend of Bakasura's slaying, they would be identified. And they were trying their best not to be identified because everybody thought that the Pandava brothers and Mother Kunti had perished in the Lakshagraha. So they left Ekachakra, started now going northwest rather. On their way, they met Vyasadeva again and learned from him that there was a Swayamvar. What is the Swayamvar? Basically, the ceremony of choosing a groom for Draupadi. Draupadi was, of course, the daughter of Draupada, and Draupadi was also known as Pancali. And why was she known as Pancali? Because the town that her father ruled was called Pancala. So Pancali, therefore. So the Swayamvar was about to be held. So Vyasadeva advised them, go to Panchal now, okay? And be in attendance for the Swayamvar. So Vyasadeva also told them that Draupadi was born to be the reason for the destruction of the Kauvaras. What a powerful prediction that Vyasadeva told the Pandavas. She was going to be the reason for the destruction of the Kauvaras. Why? It was Draupadi's fury after the attempt of disrobing her. It was her fury that instilled in her eventually five husbands, the desire to destroy the Kauvaras. So that's why Vyasadeva made this statement. She was going to be the reason for the destruction of the Kauvaras. So the Pandavas decided to attend the Swayamvar and they set off on their journey to Punjab. That's it for today's class. It's a short little class full of stories, but it puts a lot of things into context. And one of the things in context is, what was a Swayamvar? It was a ceremony of choosing a groom, which means Draupadi had 100% say in who her suitor was going to be. It was not that somebody is going to decide that he wants to marry her. No. She is the ultimate decision maker on who her husband is going to be. So in many discussions, we have been told over the years that, oh, women didn't have a say on who their husbands would be. But read the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata, there's so many cases where they very explicitly say that the lady always had the say on who her husband was be. There was no such thing as a forced marriage. None. And this is a very good example where Draupadi, the princess of Panchala, she could decide who she was going to marry. Not that somebody wins a competition. She even decided, which we'll do in the next class, she even decided who can take part in the competition. If she didn't like a particular person because she felt that person was unfit, she would voice her objection. She says, no, this person is not a right character. I don't want him to take part in the competition because what if he wins? then he might declare victory and I must get married to him. No such thing. So she was a very strong-willed person. And the example is, what we should take away is, nobody forces anyone to get married to anyone. Free will is always there. Okay. So now just three simple revision questions. Why did Bhima marry Hidimbi, and who was their child? Would you like to try? Either PJ or go ahead. Ghatotkacha, very good. And why did Bhima marry Hidimbi?
Because
he killed brother.
Okay. Ladies first. Maybe Rakita.
no, sir. So he's saying the right thing. So he killed the brother Hidimba. Bhima had killed the brother. So Hidimbi was alone, and so then she requested Mata Kunti to get married with Bhim.
Correct. Absolutely. Both of you got the right answer. Okay, well done. So what was Ghatotkacha's impact? Now I'll give PJ a chance first, okay? What was Ghatotkacha's impact in the Battle of Kurukshetra?
Me, sir?
Yes, go ahead.
He can be invisible, and he can change his size. He can fly. So he's invisible to the people, warriors. So nobody could catch him.
Correct. And would you like to add anything, Rakita Mataji?
So he was basically very strong, and also that is why nobody could control him with all his powers. So he kind of played havoc on the Kaurav's Kaurava party and all that, and they couldn't kill him. So that was one thing. It helped to win the battle.
Correct. And don't forget something very important. Karan was forced to
Yeah.
use his Visava Shakti, which he could
Hmm.
only use once. He was reserving it for Arjun, but now he had to use it on Ghatotkacha, on Duryodhan's instruction. Okay, so that was a turning point
Right.
in the battle. After that, Lord Krishna said, the war is over. Pandavas have won. Okay, so it's a very important element in the battle of Kurukshetra. And unfortunately, this part of the battle isn't mentioned very much, but it is an important part. And then the other important part is, as I mentioned earlier, the rules had been broken because Bhishma, grandfather Bhishma, was not in charge of the war, setting the rules anymore. Dronacharya had been appointed the person to be in charge of setting the rules for the war, and nobody was listening to him. They were breaking all the rules. That is why the fights were even going on at night. Okay, and foot soldiers were fighting the charioteers were slaughtering foot soldiers, all sorts of havoc. Okay, so that was the other thing. And the last simple question: who advised the Pandavas to go to Ekachakra?
Their grandfather, Vyas.
Absolutely. Okay. And okay, I'm going to ask another question. In which state today, in which state is Ekachakra in?
West Bengal.
West Bengal.
Absolutely. So it's still there. If you want to go for a palikram, you have to go to Kolkata and then you have to make your journey. It's a few hours away. But it's an interesting place. Nothing much to see, but it's there. It's basically there. Okay, just like Varnava. Does it still exist today? Yes. Of course, it's very different from how it was before, but it's there. Okay, so that's all for today's class. Any questions? Any queries you may have on this simple class today? All good? All right, so we'll meet again in 2 weeks' time and we'll continue with the story of the Swayamvar. And we will see how decisive Draupadi was in choosing her husband, okay? And how she was so virtuous in her choice. She didn't care about the what you call this, the status of the person. She made a decision that she was willing to get married to a poor Brahmana rather than a prince or a king from another state. So it showed her virtue in her selection. Okay, so in 2 weeks' time we will do that. So let's do the Guru Vandana. Om Gum Guru Bhyo Namaha.
Om Gum Gum Gurubhyo Namaha.
Om Namo Bhagavate Brahmanandaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Brahmanandaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Thank you for joining today's class. Jai Shri Krishna. Om Namah Shivaya.
Jai Shri Krishna. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you, sir.
Sir,